All right. So we really covered some ground yesterday, and I made some discoveries that I never thought I would be making around blood types and offspring and antibody programming. And then, of course, the accelerated environment, and then the Georgia Guidestones, and then the history, past, present, and future, and then what's going on with all the wars and regulating both the positive and negatives. And it's a lot to absorb. It's a lot to even process. I don't blame anyone for being so confused about all of it, because I'll tell you, it took me at least 7 years to figure out the blood types. But even then, there was things that were not said about the Rh factors and blood types, that people make assumptions on what they are, but there's even a deeper meaning that, or a deeper concept that is not mainstreamed, that you really have to critically think and read between the lines. And what is that? Well, the positive and negatives are the balancing force, and that's the Rh factors, and the negatives you take away from the positives, and the negatives can probably also be very sexual and potentially even deadly, though that you can program the, I would say, the personality and the personality, maybe even the psychological side of a negative, and turn it into something more acceptable. And that comes with nurture. But you still hold those negatives, which then someone that is a positive would have to deal with those negatives and figure out how to defend itself, even biologically. And so there's that. That's the Rh factors. So then you have the blood types, the blood type A and B and O. And the blood types are something that people don't realize, that they hold programming that causes autoimmune disorders within themselves. Which ones? The A and the B's, because the antigen A, so blood type antigen A with B antibodies means that there's no A antibodies inside the person who is blood type A. What do I mean by that? Because you have to have, there's always a positive and negative. So if you're blood type A and you have antigen A, then what you think you would have your own self-protection, but you don't, okay? You could be protected against a blood type B out there. So you have B antibodies to protect yourself against somebody else who's a B, but not an A. So you don't have protection. So you're attacking yourself, and someone else who is the same blood type, like blood type A, is attacking you. And then you have to really double and triple your efforts in making up for all that lost, that lost energy from being around blood type A, is the same blood type as you. As well as if you're a positive and you're around someone who's a negative, then you have like 3 factors to deal with. Okay, so I know I'm jumping really fast, but here's the thing. When let's say you're blood type A and you don't have antibodies for yourself, and you're around someone who's blood type A, and you're also getting antibodies, or not antibodies, but you're getting antigen from them, because you have antigen yourself attacking yourself, you have antigen from someone who's blood type A, and let's say they were also a negative and you're a positive, then there's 3 things that you have to defend yourself against, okay? So, and that's the same thing with blood type B. If you're blood type B and you're antigen B and you don't have A antibodies, then, you don't have, well, you have A, but you don't have B antibodies. So you have A antibodies and you're around someone who is blood type B, you don't have antibodies for B, but you have it for A, but then then let's say you're positive and someone else is negative, then it's the same thing with B. And it's so confusing. Even I get confused, because it's like, oh my gosh. But antigen is like a negative, antibodies is a positive, but it's all relative to your perspective, okay? Because it also can flip. What would be an antigen to me would then be converted to an antibody if I have protection against it. But if I don't have protection against it, then that antigen would be a negative. And if I don't release those demons, those negatives would stay in the body, and that would be then a mycoplasma. It would be a separate entity, okay? And so these are the wars that we're in. And you're not going to hear that from the mainstream. You'll hear about the blood transfusions. You'll hear about the ROGAM shot, and how that is supposed to protect the baby from the mother attacking it, because the mother has the anti-Rh positive antibodies that will go and attack it. But then if she wants to have a baby who is a positive, she's an Rh negative, then she has to suppress her immune system, like getting a transplant. Okay, the system, when you're getting transplants, you're supposed to be on immune suppressing drugs so that way the antibodies in your body don't attack that foreign object like a transplant. All right? And so that's why people with the whole J world and transplants is that when you activate your immune system, yeah, and you have a transplant, when you activate your immune system, you'll activate your immune system to attack that transplant. However, would you be able to rebuild, and regrow in that process of the body trying to attack it too? And I couldn't tell you. That's why, someone with a transplant, I wouldn't want to even touch that, because you'd have to eat a lot of food to regrow, and then which would win out, the regrowth or the antibodies attacking that transplant. So it's like I couldn't, yeah. So anyway, I already could do the J world, because it would be serious immune system activation, and immune system activation is based upon how that your body is programmed at the time. And so yeah, we are in a controlled decline. Okay. It's always been that way. People accepted it because they accepted death as an outcome. And so if you accept death as an outcome, then what's going on today is just accelerating your intentions. But I wanted to have a longer life. Well, you got to work for that. You got to understand the environment is so accelerated and so aggressive that you have to be even more aggressive in separating yourself from people who would be taken away from you. I mean, microbially as well as financially and everything else. But then you'd also have to feed your body to add what is being taken away based upon what's in your body that's been activated and what's out there. Okay, so that's why I'm saying it's really good to know your blood type, to know what you're in for. Okay, and so I've gotten a little bit of feedback from people and confirmation on even the RHs, the RH negatives and positives, and even the blood types. And it makes sense, because I remember I was in a struggle my whole freaking childhood and everywhere around me, because I'm probably around in Silicon Valley. I was probably around a bunch of type A's and B's with a few type O's, O positives. I was around a lot of programmed people who were made to be specialized in something. Okay? And so I was type O in my house, so I'm probably the only type O in my house. Everyone's probably an RH negative or A or B. I couldn't confirm because I don't know everyone's blood type. They haven't told me, and I haven't asked them. I did, or they didn't know, or whatever. And so I remember how difficult it was when you're around people microbially and even psychologically, and so your defenses then act like it's the aggressor when really you're in defense, and that's some crazy shit. That's some crazy shit. So you got to know your blood type so you understand what it is that's making you react the way you do and making you act the way you do. And then it would also probably even tell you how you're going to conduct your life between now and the future, because now it's more aggressive. This environment is so aggressive. That's when I figured out my husband is like probably O negative, because COVID really didn't affected it, but not really. He's like fucking God. He can walk around and he doesn't understand me. And I'm like, every single time he comes home, I'm getting a little bit sick and full of defenses, right? And this environment definitely, exacerbated some stuff. And he probably was one like, what the hell is wrong with you? You have issues. No, it's not that I have issues. Well, yeah, but I'm in defense mode in a microbial way. The environment accelerated and everything that's in me accelerated. I had to release those demons. But then being around someone who is most likely an O negative will bring up the defenses, the microbial defenses. And also the person, could be highly sexualized and so that's what you have to realize what's going on is the blood types do develop the wars, and the RH factors develop the wars within the family. That's why when people have babies, yeah, you could be developing a baby that, let's say, is the same RH factor. You're both positive or you're both negative. But it's the blood type would be another determining factor. If you're the same blood type, then you'll be attacking each other. If you're a different blood type, then you might have the blood type O could give you defenses for blood type, for the opposite blood type. But if you are opposite blood types, you be protected from each other. But if you're the same blood type, like two A's or two B's together, then you'd be attacking each other. So there's so many combinations of which any blood type would have to respond in such a way and understand in such a way how to limit interaction or feed for interaction so you don't die from your exposure to your friends, your family, your coworkers, from the world out there. And so I suspended my delivery services because now I understand what I'm in for. I can't like hide away from the world. I have to know what kind of world I'm living in and what I need to do to strengthen myself for the world that I'm living in and understand why I get these the reactions. Like when I went to that party and drank alcohol this last summer, I blew up like a balloon because I was holding on to a bunch of negatives that the mucus was developing to go and put like a boundary, because you have electrolytes. So electrolytes are like salt boundaries. And so I had a lot of offspring that blew me up to protect me from all those negatives so I wouldn't die from all that exposure. See, that's your immune system working for you. I may have developed antibodies for whatever I could develop antibodies for, but if I was around a bunch of negatives, whether it's A negative, B negative, O negative, AB negative, any negatives in my environment, I would have to go and protect myself from microbially. Okay? And so in this environment, that's why I blew up so quickly in that environment, plus the heat. And then also why you see people now out there with whoever they're with, and they don't even know the blood types, but some people are gaining so much weight. Why are they gaining so much weight? Because they're around people that are probably their opposite or same blood type relative to RH factor or blood type, and their defense systems are getting bigger. Their defense system are causing so much replication. They're gaining so much weight. I noticed that when I'm around, when my husband's around, and I'm gaining, I'm feeling bloated. And if I don't release the poop demons or whatever, then I would say bloated, get bigger and bigger. But I notice a difference in my body. And then when I release that demon, the difference in my body, it's changed. Because I was holding on to all of the defense systems from being around my husband. And so then I have to release those demons every day. And so, this morning I had to do the same thing, release the demons. And I was blowing my nose, and he left yesterday to go on the truck. And when I see him again, I'll have defense system against. But now, and so in a higher frequency environment with more aggressive variants that people are holding on because they're exposed to it. And then you also add the negative on top of someone who, who's a negative on top of the negative, and then they're going around a positive person. Then now you're accelerating those diseases that person who's around would then have to go and defend themselves against. And so, I'll tell you, it's so interesting. But now, I want to become stronger. And that's the thing, why you have the positive and negatives is so you can become stronger. You have to be able to survive your peers, survive the stress of evolution. That's MK Ultra. It's trauma-based programming through the microbial world. And there's a more aggressive trauma-based programming in other areas, so that way someone can be really proficient in their craft. But also, evolution is like a trauma-based programming because it is pretty aggressive. You got to take on the suffering of developing the offspring to protect you and then release them. Because when you harbor so many offspring from a stressful situation, from the antigen antibody programming that you're surrounded by people and things, or maybe even sexually active, then those can turn into not only cancer, but they can turn into children and turn into either someone that will be your protector, like why some people get along with their kids and why people have an issue with some of their kids because of the blood type. You develop someone either is a protector for you or someone who's working against you all the time. And you'll know when you're in resistance with someone because you'll feel it. You can see it. You can feel it. And that's the thing with my husband and I, is that there is definitely resistance and there's definitely an assimilation. It's a balance of both worlds. And so, I have boundaries and I understand financially how to keep things going. How to not spend so much. And he had maybe the opposite, but he works hard. But he also knows his boundaries in other areas. And so we're like that perfect match of each of us have the strengths. We respect boundaries as long as we're verbal about what we need or what we don't need. And that's what works. But I realized that most likely the RH factor is what's causing my reaction. And even, before, before COVID and before even the J world, before I really brought up, the difference in my immune system, I was getting bigger and bigger. Okay. Not only do we did gain a lot of weight in the truck, not only from eating gas station pizzas, but also being around each other in close quarters. Okay. Which we needed to do because he was skinny, I was skinny. And so that was needed because we needed to have that substance to work with. And then I had substance to work with the J world. And so that was necessary. But, I was doing so much of the J juices back in 2016, 2017, 2018 that I got really, really skinny. And so I was taking away from myself from taking away food and doing so much J juice, and then being around him took away so much of my substance too, that actually the skinniness and the losing the weight was accelerated. But then I realized that I needed the food because when COVID came around, I needed to feed that energy. And that's when I realized you needed all the food and the meat, the milk, the cheese, and eggs, all of that. And I fed every single symptom I had when COVID came around. And so now when I'm around my husband who's a negative, I do get bigger, which is good. I have substance to convert for protection, but I also can release that demon and regulate my weight and regulate my protection. So that way I don't die from exposure for being around a negative. And you're supposed to be able to do that. You're not supposed to die from being around people. You're supposed to know how to assimilate and manage the thermodynamics, because that's what it is. It's thermodynamics. Okay? And so I'm going back to sort of like the not the last video, the video before, because I said I would go and recap. Yesterday I just did the blood wars, but now I'm just kind of recapping a little bit. But yeah, judgments is self-reflection. Okay? And so that's what I figured out, is that everyone that judges me and whoever I judge out there, because we all do, people pretend they don't. They're like, oh, I'm not a bad person for judging. No, if you want to know who you are, you will judge somebody else. And that's what I noticed. It's all the do-gooders say, oh, I'm a do-gooder, I'm a holier than thou, I'm a high moral person, I don't judge anyone. Bullshit. The fact that you judge someone who's judging other people or you is a judgment unto itself. So you already negated yourself by saying you don't judge anyone. All right? But judgment is self-reflection, because whatever you judge in someone is actually what is the issues that you have within yourself. And I notice that with myself, that when I judge other people and I look at them like, oh my gosh, or this, or oh my gosh, that, I see exactly what I don't want to see in myself. And then I correct myself and figure out, oh, okay, got it. That's why I see that in other people, because I see that in myself. And so people that don't want to see themselves, people who don't want to see, will say that they don't judge other people. And some people's way of looking at themselves is making comments about other people. They're really talking about themselves, but they're trying to destroy someone else because they don't understand that they're the ones that they have to figure out for themselves. And that's the thing. Self-destruction is also a projected type of situation. See, it's okay to judge and correct yourself. It's not okay to judge and not correct yourself. But again, that's a judgment on my end. But I already corrected myself. But what people do is they judge others and they don't correct themselves. Or they say, I don't judge anything. And like, yeah, okay, whatever. So you don't want to correct yourself at all. You don't even look at yourself. And you don't want to look in the mirror, and you don't want to even, attempt to figure out where you have come wrong for not judging and for not being a self-reflecting person and correcting whatever issues. But to deny that you have issues by saying that you'll never judge anyone speaks to then why people are under the influence and numb to everything. Yeah, when you've been taking drugs and alcohol and sex and herbs and extracts, you'll never self-reflect, really. It'll always be that you'll never be the one to judge, and then you'll die just not knowing who you are and not knowing who humanity is. And that's kind of a lot of the world out there. So yeah, judgments and making judgments is a self-reflection. It's a type of projected self-reflection. And so when someone does judge you and talk smack about you, they're really trying to work out their own issues. And some people will never work out their own issues. They'll keep trying to work it out until they die because they won't do behavioral changes. And that's the nature of society right now, is that people who are constantly critiquing, whether Israel or me or the government or Biden or Trump or whatever, but they'll never really behaviorally change themselves, but they'll be working out their issues projected on someone else but it's not really working it out. It's just relieving the pressure, but then not doing anything to change themselves. So they'll always have a problem with Israel. They'll always have a problem with me. They'll always have a problem with the vaccine. They'll always have a problem with, air, food, and water, and whatever else. And they'll die always having a problem with someone or something. Okay? Always looking for the enemy or finding an enemy. And so, what we're in right now, all this trauma-based program, it's type of an evolution. It's type of MK Ultra evolution. And there's such thing as too much or too little, but you're not being subjected so much unless you're the one that's opening up those doors to develop or to entertain so much of that evolution trauma stuff. And so those in the West that are not in areas that are third world, that are under duress, you have the option to entertain or not entertain so much evolution and trauma and stress. And so MK Ultra equals evolution, too much or too little. Well, to what degree can people handle stress? And so regulated stress develops strength. So as long as you behaviorally change and you find areas of where you should be pointing the fingers at yourself versus somebody else. Because it's very easy when you're under the influence to point your fingers at Israel. It's very easy when you're under the influence of cannabis or anything else to point the fingers at me. It's very easy when you're under the influence to point your fingers at some other political party, but it's very difficult to point the fingers at yourself. And that's the issues we have. So many people who are deficient, malnourished, and under the influence, and it's everyone else's fault but their own. And that's pretty sad. But that's the world we live in. And we have legalized cannabis and legalized so many things that cause people to never look at themselves. And it's always somebody else's fault. But then they are entertaining all the things that are causing them stress. And they even have the stress in their body they're not willing to release because they're taking the drugs and the pharmaceuticals and things to trap the demon within that's causing them to project out and point the finger at somebody else. Okay? And so strong humans must be able to handle psychological, physical, and biological stress without being destroyed from it. And evolution is stressful. And so the continuity of human race is dependent on the strength and resilience of the human race and its ability to learn and evolve. And you'll find that people who are very malnourished, deficient, blaming, and dealing with the demon in their body, well, they will have an issue with learning and evolving. They'll have an issue with any information. They'll want proof of everything. Well, the proof is the fact that you're under the influence. The proof of my information is the fact that you can't handle even your own existence because you have to be under the influence. You have to be blaming somebody, and you have to be antagonizing other people and saying that it's their fault. That's the proof. When you finally get away from the drugs and the alcohol and the crazy sex and the cannabis and the blaming, and you finally look at where you have come up short, I'll tell you, that was a trauma in of itself when you finally look at where you have contributed to the overall world's problems. Okay? But the fact that people are under the influence speaks to the fact that they cannot look at themselves. It's always somebody else's fault. And they always have to work their problems out against somebody else. And that is psychologically what's going on right now. That's the major aggressive decline of right now, the human race. But there is hope because there's some people who can withstand this and look at themselves and figure out how to fix themselves without involving everyone and their mother or taking everyone and their mother down with them. Okay? And so that's what we're in right now. And so, yes, judgment is okay. Because someone says, oh, you shouldn't be judging people. Oh my gosh, it's so wrong. And you're deciding the fate of someone because they think it's like also executing somebody or no. You can judge. Doesn't mean you go on their page or go to their house or go to their work and try to destroy them. But you can judge, which means that you're also looking at yourself. Again, those who blame or those who say it's somebody else's fault for whatever, yeah, they're basically talking about themselves. But you can't really say that to them because that's not their purview. They're pointing the finger somewhere else. But yes, judgment is okay because you are not deciding the fate of somebody else, but you have an opinion about them or the person, therefore yourself. It is an opening for personal self-reflection and examination. Judge away, because what you judge about someone else is also a judgment about yourself. And so when people judge others, they also expose their own shortcomings. They also expose their weaknesses. That's the thing about aggressors. The aggressors are extremely weak people. When they aggress against somebody and look as a demon against somebody, they're showing how weak they are themselves. And it's sad because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to strengthen themselves, so they stop doing that. And that's why the system has accelerated so much of what's going on, because there's so many people who are so deficient, so weak, that cannot behaviorally change and are out to destroy others if given the opportunity. And so the system wants you to go on Facebook or wherever through email, and they want you to point the finger because they want to see who they're dealing with. And when you see how many people out there are pointing the finger and aggressing against somebody spiritually, psychologically, intellectually, whatever, okay, now you know what kind of society you live in and how deadly it can be, especially when you're in mixed company and you happen to trigger someone because of your personality or what you look like or what you sound like. And then you're like, oh shit, do I really want to be out there around people who are highly triggered in this accelerated environment, who are always pointing the finger at somebody else? And then, of course, the system gives you solutions for all of your problems, and that would include, yes, all the different remedies and surgeries and pharmaceuticals. So at your own hand, you can take yourself out of the loop. They'll let you be under the influence because, yeah, you need to be under the influence of something that will keep you relatively regulated. Okay? But they also want to see who they're dealing with. So that's why they're giving you a venue of social media and email and writing and speaking, so they know who they're dealing with, what they're dealing with, and then they can figure out how they're going to make sure you don't, cross boundaries. And so please judge. You are exposing your own shortcomings, and we need to see it. We need to see how intolerant you are. Therefore, avoid you to save ourselves. Boom. If you cannot handle being on your own, you will hide from self-reflection and put on a face of tolerance, sneaking, judging, and then denying it. The ones who cannot handle the honesty of others, judging others as themselves, and avoid to attempt to understand may not be as honorable as they claim. It takes a thick skin to deal with people's projected issues, no matter how honorable they want you to think they are. People hide behind love and hate and holier than thou. Just remember, if you need to judge people, don't overstep your boundaries and force your opinion on somebody else. And we have those. Somebody did that to me just the other day. And she is holier than thou on her page. She's like, oh, you shouldn't be talking about your problems on Facebook. Leave that at home. I'm like, who the fuck are you? But she says it on her page. But then she goes on my page, crosses boundaries. Those are the holier than thou people that cross boundaries because they want to go and envelop. They're like the RH negatives that don't have boundaries, that weren't taught boundaries, that want to go and cannibalize somebody else. Those are people in your society that are walking all over, everywhere. And if they are not given those regulation and boundaries, they would destroy somebody. Oh, they would hurt somebody. Abso-fucking-lutely. Those are people that you must be very wary of, that don't have the boundaries or the self-control to keep their fucking bullshit to themselves on their own Facebook. I see their Facebook, but I don't say anything to them. I sit on my Facebook, but I do not go on their page and say, hey, it's bad or wrong to say this or that. Or even defend yourself. Because it's not for me to do, defend myself on somebody else's page. Like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm aggressing and saying I should be in defense. See, that's where you have to understand. Defense is not aggressing against somebody else. Defense is staying in your own world and defending yourself. But again, people misconstrue those things. And then the defenders become aggressors. And that's the antigen antibody programming. That's where people can switch just like that. From being a protector to then being a predator. And that's what we developed in our society through all the offspring of dying and reproducing, and of course all the remedies, and of course all the drugs and alcohol and sex. And so So just remember, if you need to judge someone, don't overstep your boundaries and force your opinion on somebody else. And definitely do not make wild accusations against a person, place, or thing. You must prove all accusations. Good luck. Write your accusations on your page and self-reflect. Chances are your backyard is full of dog shiz you have yet to clean up. So transparency is something I cultivate. Nothing to hide, and feel free to judge me as you examine yourself during the world, cluing the world in on your internal dialogue. Honesty is also the best way to vet out the people you choose to interact with. If my info repels you, chances are we could clash. We would clash anyway, so no harm, no foul, no wasted energy or drama. Honesty is an excellent defense system. And people's honesty saved me so much time and energy trying to cultivate something that would never happen anyways. So cherish the honest people in your world because they will save you time, money, and drama. It's the ones who can't handle the honesty. They will try to convert you and resist you and say you're attacking them and also say you're the enemy. They might be the ones who lied to themselves. And so if I'm repelled by you, I'll just walk away. I don't even interact. No reason to convert you. But I also appreciate you if there's other sides to you that are honorable to me. So sometimes people post things that, I like the person, but they're posting things that I don't agree with. That's fine. There's always going to be something you're not going to agree with somebody. But I also find the things that I do like about them, and I'll respond to that. But no one's ever going to be 100% agreeing with you on everything. But appreciate, if there is something to appreciate about them, appreciate that. And that's the thing, with my husband, we don't agree on everything, but we find the things. There are most things that we agree on, that we enjoy, then we don't. So that's what I appreciate. And it's the things that we don't agree on, that little resistance that keeps things going. It keeps things moving because it then gives us different ways to strategize how we're going to make it work. But if it was so easy, okay, that's great. But then where's the evolution? It's a little bit of resistance somewhere is the evolution. Okay? And so the world is an amazing place, and it's not as black and white as we think. All right. Okay. That was really necessary to talk about because I want people to be okay with judging others and judging themselves in a way that is articulate and relatively respectable. And then finding ways to speak so you're not completely targeting a specific person or place or thing or idea. It's more of okay, what is your feelings about something, and articulate it in a way that gives you room to change your mind if you want. Because I've said things where I'm I don't want to be an O negative because I could be Charles Manson, and that's such a black and white type of conclusion. And I realized, hold on a second. It's not I'm going to turn in Charles Manson to be O negative, because then you see who Prince William, nice guy from what I see. Queen Mother, probably a nice lady. We heard stories, but whatever. Okay, so there are really good O negatives and there are mean O positives. And so it's nature and nurture. All right, so when you say things out there, give room for yourself to change your mind. But people do like to back themselves in a corner, and they've put so much investment in being against a person, place, or thing that they have not given themselves room to change their mind. So therefore, they're stuck, and they'll die in that situation because they'll have to play that part forever. They've invested so much money in playing a part of being one side or the other. And could they put a face out there of being one way and then be different at home? I guess that's a lot to manage, being two-faced like that. I think it's much better in my world, my opinion, to be consistent in your face out there in the world and consistent at home. And so if you're against somebody, say Bill Gates or Jillian, then you be consistent at home and say Jillian sucks and whatever, and you be consistent out there and say Jillian sucks, and that way it makes life easier for everyone. But when you play both sides all the time, then do you even know who the fuck you are? Do you even know what it is you're doing? How can you play both sides? That's a lot of energy, okay? And that's a lot of things to remember, at home and out there. And so eventually, one of those are going to win out. And if you realize that Jillian actually makes sense and Bill Gates is not the enemy, then it'll be much easier world to live in when you're not always in conflict even with yourself, because you have to put on an image out there. And that's why, I don't know, some people are doing that. There might be, but I couldn't tell you. Obviously I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I think most people's public face out there is truly what they do at home. because it's easier. You got to be consistent in one way or the other. Okay? And again, if you're playing both sides of the fence, that's just too much energy and too many lies that you have to go and remember. Because it's seriously, it's like lying to yourself and lying to the public. So you might as well, just tell the truth and say, hey, I hate Jillian and I hate Bill Gates and everything is great. And we're like, okay, we know where you stand, but stay over there. Don't come around me. I don't need your hate over here. But that's what I mean by, judgment is okay. But again, if you want to evolve, leave room for evolution. Leave room for changing your mind, because it's okay to change your mind, all right? All right. And so, again, if you are accusing Pfizer of destroying humans and then look in your own backyard and all the ivermectins and remedies you are also recommending, which are just as similar, developing fertility. Accusations are admissions to the guilt you have projected out. Even if you think you have evidence, will it stand up in the court of law? And so that's the psychological operations we are under, and the system purposely set it up that way. The house always wins when you gamble. Because what do you get because gambling, it means that it's for chance. Like, you're gambling that your belief system is the most correct. And you're trying to get other people to gamble with you. Just like MLMs and stock market, stock market pumps. You're gambling that you're going to win, that you're right. And then when you're right, you're going to get all this money and fame and you're going to be like, yeah, I'm right. But really, the house set up this whole system for you to resist or assimilate to. And either way you resist or assimilate, the house will always wins no matter what. I figured that out. No matter which way I went, resisting or assimilating, I still had to change. I still have to deal with the suffering of releasing the demons. I still have to deal with how to deal with an O negative, or the negatives in my world that I have to keep feeding for because they're taking away so much energy. Okay? So the house always wins. It's just a matter of how you want to characterize it and if you want to survive it. You didn't set up the system. You were invited to participate and they laid out the rules, and then you agreed to abide by them because you are a citizen of that community. You had children. You signed on the dotted line that you were going to do whatever. Okay? And so by the very nature of transactions is an agreement that you signed a contract. When you're paying taxes, you signed a contract. When you're paying your bills, you signed a contract. Anytime you exchange money with the government or any kind of vendor, you're signing a contract. You already agreed upon everything that they're doing. And now you're resisting it. Okay. Yeah. Not going to happen. Well, yeah, I guess. You'll destroy yourself. And what's really interesting is San Francisco. Every restaurant is closed in San Francisco. I remember back in the church, in the late 90s and early 2000s, oh my gosh, San Francisco was so amazing with the food and the nightlife, and now it's just like... And so I'm watching some of these activists out there. They're like, oh yeah, we got to defeat the monsters. We're winning. We're defeating the monsters. I'm like, are you serious? Are you fucking serious? People talk about defeating the monsters trying to destroy us. If you already believe you should die someday, you already been defeated and destroyed. Okay? If you already believe you should die someday, they already won. You already lost. That's what these activists don't realize. Is that they already have the belief they should die someday. They have a bunch of kids and a bunch of excess and pleasure and paradise. And they expect you to die someday because grandma died, people around them died, and they're okay with it. They didn't resist it. They were fine with it. And now we're in a new environment, accelerating the particles, accelerating people's intentions. Now you're seeing died suddenly. You can blame it on whatever you want. But it's really all of the different blood types and the RH factors. Forget the therapies for a minute. Just imagine how many people who are negatives in your world, how many are blood type A and B, how many are O positive, O negative, or A negative, or A positive, or whatever, and they already have antigen attacking themselves they don't have antibodies for. They are O positive, they're around a bunch of negatives around them, taking away, causing defense systems to go and do, offspring like mucus and whatever, and they're taking their remedies, causing fertility. You've been defeated. They're already gone. It's just a matter of time when the next freaking lifestyle or the next wave comes through and takes your ass out. What do you think you're winning as you're keyboard warring or whatever, and you're out there gallivanting in a very aggressive environment around people who are taking so much from you because of the RH factors, because of the blood. And maybe you have a blood type of A or B, and your body's attacking itself. You don't have antibodies for it, so you're being minused, deleted, and you're blaming somebody else for that. So you already lost before you thought you won. How are you going to save yourself from not dying of natural causes regardless of catalyst? The battle was already won way before you even knew you were in one. You were just given the playbook way after you already bought into your mortality outcome. That was built into you. Mortality through family was instilled into you because it's a 3-generation rule. And if you're surrounded by 3 generations all the time, right now, reinforcing those belief systems. And so not if, and you are surrounded by 3 generations all the time right now, reinforcing those belief systems. Oh, the system gave you reason to think you were winning, but you weren't winning. You were just given the storyline to make you think you're winning. You don't even know who the enemy is. Just read about them on the internet or on Facebook, and then someone told you you're winning. Because what does winning look like in your world as a keyboard warrior? Because someone told you you're winning? Because some pundit out there? And all of us are controlled opposition. So some pundit who wants to look at the bright side of stuff, oh yeah, we're winning, as he is dying or blowing up from all the defense systems being around so many people. That's what I'm saying. Those that are in the entertainment industry or the political industry, okay, some can hold the line, be relatively cured because of the whole balancing of the positive and negative and their own antigen antibody programming. And some are reacting to their environment and they're blowing up and aging aggressively. You think they're winning? Or are they just keeping you going? They're just keeping that line out there going with a little fish at the end or with a little bait at the end, keeping you like a carrot and stick type of mentality, you know? Eventually, or occasionally throw you, some new baits. So you're like, oh, we're winning. Or here, let me sell you this. Or, oh my gosh, right? The battle was never the system you were fighting. Okay, the battle was always within your own mycoplasma that the system developed in you. The demons, through all the remedies and surgeries and pharmaceuticals, and even those around you, because you have a little bit of everybody and you fight and take over your body, mind, and spirit. Remember, those are the RH factors and the blood types. That's the demon within that people trap inside, and that's what the cancers are. That's what all the different autoimmune disorders are, is that the fact people hold on to the enemy inside. And they program the enemy to go and attack and find someone to blame for all of your own personal issues that you hold inside. That's the demon within. That's the demon that drives people to do what they do and fight against others as well as love them to death. And people are projecting the war inside out there. And that's what you're not being told. And you won't listen to me because I'm your peer. You still listen to authority. And you still buy authority stories. And that's not their fault, okay? I just follow the laws. I don't always believe the stories. And I release the demons within. And I'm careful not to entertain too many demons in my world. And I never assume I have won. I don't have control over other nations outside intentions. I just defend myself in my home and out there. And I know exactly who it is I'm dealing with. As far as the government, as far as people out there, I know exactly. And these great resets have happened time and time again. Absolutely. We're in another reset loop. The same people who were resisting 10,000 years ago are resisting today. And they're under the influence. Cannabis is prevalent way back in the Sumerian times and even during, Egyptian times around Imhotep. People had to figure out how not to face reality because reality was so devastating, so they had to be under the influence. Oh, I understand. History always repeats. Those who don't know history or their own history or history are doomed to repeat it. You never win when you resist. Now, you need a little bit of resistance, but too much resistance causes breakage. Okay? I mean, remember, I developed so much innovation from so much of the resistance because I was able to handle it. I was resisting everything my whole life, in my childhood, in my teenhood, in my adulthood. So it was just another thing that I had to fight against and weather. But you never win when you constantly resist. It's too much. It's too much stress. It was always understanding the other arguments and assimilation to evolution and supporting that evolution correctly. Resistance is futile. Believe me, I know. I was taught to resist my whole life, and it did give me strength, but there is a limit. It was always a demon within that I was resisting, and I released it. Okay? I won. I saved my own life. Now it's just surviving this crazy world. And so that's when you realize that when you finally release that demon, and you'll know what those demons are, because you will stop using the drugs and alcohol and sex and crazy things out there, and you'll stop blaming someone, and you will feel what it feels like to release those demons. And then maybe if you're lucky enough, you'll get some kind of clarity of thought that you will be like, holy shit, I got to share this with the world. And I don't know what that is for you. I've had so many epiphanies and clarities of thought the last 7 years, more so the last 3 years. And I've seen some crazy shit as far as the orbs and the dreams, and even things where, like, you know, the shadows that I would see. I remember a lot, you know, those last couple months, and I'm watching my movies, and I felt this fear of something. Like I knew something else another presence was in the room. And I would see these shadows just darting back and forth. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like trying to hide from the darkness over here so I can just look at the TV, because that light was what I needed to zero in on. But the shadows on each side was like, oh my God. Right now, I mean, I don't have that feeling of that anymore. Okay. And so it's that, I'll tell you, the fear of the opposition is diminishing because I'm releasing the opposition or blaming somebody. My husband is who he is. There's nothing wrong with him. There's nothing wrong with anyone out there. Everyone has their own issues to deal with. But I have to make sure that I have to defend myself through the microbes and space and food and release so I can survive my own household, survive the world that I live in, survive people who don't understand this information, survive the ignorance that's out there. That's all over. Because people still don't understand that the blood types, the A's and B's, attack themselves. And the RH factors attack each other, the positive and negatives. Again, you'll not see the whole RH factors, positive and negative, outlined out there on mainstream, because that's what Hitler used as his justification to eradicate the Jews. Because a lot of the Sephardic Jews were RH negative. And he's a positive. And people who are RH negative, and maybe even blood type A and B, are so smart. Fucking smart. Because they neutralized the opposition around them. And they stayed very tunneled and very intent and intentional about what their craft was, whether it was banking, finances, or science, or law, or whatever. Very, 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 I don't say tunnel, that sounds so pejorative. Committed. Because how many scientists out there don't entertain all the bullshit? So how many A's and B's don't entertain too many people outside their circle of people? They stay in their cliques. I'm a type O, so I can just go around the world and just collect all the antibodies from the A's and B's, which I have been. I'm a type O positive, so I needed the negatives out there to kind of hold me back from not destroying myself too, because you can also do that as a type O, and even a positive or a negative. But A's and B's had a little bit more self-control. Sort of. Yeah, well, they do. What was, I'm going to figure out, hold on a second. What was Hitler's blood type? I don't know exactly. I don't know what his blood type was. He was a positive, but was he an O positive? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not going to go through. But he was against the negatives. He was a positive. I don't know if he was O positive or not, or A positive or B positive. But he was a positive. But it's the RH negatives that are extremely smart. Extremely smart. Yeah. All right. So, So nothing is wrong with people. It's just that you have to know what you're dealing with. You have to know what you're dealing with. Okay. And so anyways, it was so surviving this crazy world. So it's understanding what you're around and how to make up for what people are taking from you, even inadvertently. Okay? And that's why in this environment, I really just be very careful how often I go out there. Because even when I went to the restaurant a couple days ago with my husband and a few of his friends, I could even feel my head filling up. My head was filling up with mucus. But I wasn't like coughing or anything. It was, I could feel it, I could hear the difference in my voice. And I was feeling kind of floaty too. Okay. Like I was under the influence of just being around people and all the negatives and all of that. And and then we went to, I think it was a Giant Eagle, and we also went to another place. I forget what it was. Jeez. It was just a couple days ago. We went to 3 different places. Oh, that's right. I didn't go in, but he went in. But anyway, so yeah, we did a bunch of stuff, and we hung out with a few, or in places in public, and I had to release those demons because of the negatives that were in my environment. So I know that when I go out there, I'll tell you, when I go out there, it's like you have to release those demons every single day if you're out there all the time. And some people find out that they may have to cut down or not even work out in the public. They have to work at home or do something completely different or work part-time. And that's what I'm saying. When you scale down your lifestyle, you'll save yourself. It's those that must be out there. Okay? And they could be like O negatives they could be O negatives. And when you have a bunch of O negatives out there, like my husband, they can handle it. They have the golden blood when you think about it, because they can handle it. I mean, it'll take a toll, obviously, because they have to release those demons of antibodies. I don't know. See, with the O negatives, they have to release the antibodies in their body because, and I couldn't tell you if an O negative, what would it be like for an O negative to release those demons, because they do hold things that are like, if you're O, then you're holding the antibody, you're holding the weight of the world. And you could probably see that in people who are O negative, and they're bigger when you think about it, because they are holding the weight of the world. They're taking on so much evolution and so much intellectual capacity, so much life experience. And that does translate into weight and age. That is aging, because all that information is sucking the life out of them. So even O negatives would have to do what I'm doing, release the demons. And so O negatives, no positives, are balancing forces. It's interesting. But yeah, that was the whole thing with the whole Hitler thing, was he was trying to eradicate the Rh negatives. Oh, yeah, okay. So I just realized that those salt caves cure the beast within people. All halotherapies trap the body's demons within. So I don't do salt caves. It's interesting how they've come to be more popular within the last, 10 years. The pink salt lamps, the salt caves, and of course the whole Jilly Juice fit right in with that. People were telling me about the Soleil, and the saltwater flushes, and I'm like, okay. But see, salt is supposed to be an activation, not used as, it's supposed to be a catalyst, not a cure. You're not a piece of meat. And that's the thing is right now, these people, who don't understand what's going on, and they're against the V's, taking their children to salt caves. These kids are not allowed to evolve. These kids are having that beast within them basically cured until that cure doesn't work anymore, and they're getting sucked out from the inside, and they're falling apart. Some of these kids are falling apart. Salt cures were only for preserving meat when you didn't have refrigeration. Salting fish, salting pork was used as a preservative. Salt was never supposed to be used to cure any of your illnesses. Salt was supposed to be a catalyst, not a cure. Remember, I was salt deficient. When people cure themselves with salt and then they fall apart because they are not allowed to move and release or even retain, they will fall apart sooner in this environment. The beast is still destroying them on the inside. And then you can only imagine what blood types they are. So they already hold the beast within as a blood type A and B. Because remember, they have that antigen working against them, developing into something they have to resist every single day, eating them out from the inside. Like trapping vampires in a salt circle. And then when those vampires are allowed to move again, they redouble their efforts to make up for lost time. That's your blood type, and that's all the negatives or positives that are in your body, the negatives or whatever. Sickness has always been the gateway to releasing those demons. That is why you release demons every day, so you don't have such an energy conversion. It takes you out when it gets saved up, the cumulative effect. You don't want a flood of demons waking up in your body. That's why people die. That's why they die suddenly. Back in 2016, and so salt deficient, taking on the salt was a massive awakening and immune system activation. Oh my God. It was so amazing. But it should never be used as a cure, ever. You're not food for somebody else. You're not trying to preserve yourself to stay in the cupboard for years with no movement. You're not just a slab of meat. You're supposed to evolve and change and release demons and take on information and release the excessive information. And so then I discovered the power of salt could be used for good or evil. And so that's my claim to fame, right? The world is not what you think. And all the claims I made, even back then, were possible when I released those demons. So even though I couldn't prove that you could regenerate organs and limbs even if you're born without them, and all of that, and temper sexuality, not just LGBTQ, but you can temper all sexuality, even hetero, okay? You just had to eat all the food and not use any more of my juice or any cures. You had to stay away from the medical health and wellness world and holistic system. And yeah, you had to be drug-free and alcohol-free. And I didn't discover that side of it until later on. So it was the evolution that I discovered. But I knew the potential, what potential the human body carried as far as immortality. But humans were cursed with pleasure and paradise and addictions, which is why they can't see my information really, except only a few. And if only a few people who have released many other demons could see the potential. It doesn't mean that they will be able to realize it, but some can see the potential and some can realize it too at the same time. It's an individual battle. And so, yeah, you know, I mentioned Audrey and John, and it's interesting. Audrey is O negative. John is like B positive or something. I think, yeah. He's a B. Audrey is an O negative. It'll be interesting to me as an O positive, watching all of us trying to figure out how we're going to survive this. Okay? And so it's an individual battle. And so releasing the programming of what women and men are and what they represent also is heavy programming to consider. When you buy into you're not a real woman or a real man unless you are doing A, B, C, D, F, and G. Well, when you buy into you're not a real woman, or okay, that's a trap of that, and that's programming. And that will destroy you. Rigid belief systems and social constructs in a changing world will destroy you. And I'm watching it right now. And some of the programming could be as much as collecting baubles because you think you're getting ahead. And you think getting ahead is collecting wealth and owning everything under the sun. But people don't realize that collecting all that stuff takes so much out of you. And so those are like O negatives, and they're men. And they can work really hard jobs and do all these things like my husband. All of that will tax the shit out of him. And it'll age him faster. I'm trying to tell him to relax, sleep. But with these changing conditions, and I felt that long beep yesterday. My husband was up all night last night. And so he had, yesterday he was up all night yesterday night. And so he had to sleep for a few hours yesterday day. That's how it's going to react. That's how it's going to be for some people. They will be so energetic that they'll be up, expending their resources exponentially. It's the food and the sleep and the release is what's going to give you the longevity. But when you've been blessed or cursed with being awake and having the ability to do what you're doing, and you're riding on that wave of energy, and you could be an O negative, okay? I'm telling you, those are the people out there. They're out there gallivanting. Because they're not going to stay home, because why should they? Why should they be sick if they can do it, right? People who are so well that they can hold the line with all the different remedies out there and things, or their immune system is so strong and can deal with this, but so strong for this lifetime, you're not going to see them be down too much until it's a died suddenly when they've expended the last little bit of resource in their body, because they're still taking on the world's problems and they're still retaining it, but they're finding ways to hold the line through the medicines, through all the remedies and whatever. Okay, I would rather just take on the world's demons, feel whatever, and release it, and know that I bought myself another day. But no, I'm not out there gallivanting, because I know as an O positive what that means. And that's just the cross I have to bear, I guess. But then, so there's always upsides and downsides to everything. But here I am today, cultivating my brain versus out there collecting experiences. I already did the collecting of experiences in my youth. In the last 7 years, I went to the oldest European country, Portugal. Okay? And I've been to China. I lived in Hawaii, so I lived on an island. I've been to the oldest European country. I've been to China, a huge empire, both north and south. And I've been all over the U.S. for the most part, been to Canada. And so it's not like I really need, and so it's not like I really need to go and collect all those experiences. I have no reason to go to Vietnam. I don't need to go to the Bahamas. It's like one of those things where finally, like, I'm at 50, and now I get a second chance at life. I did a lot in my youth, a lot in my teenhood, and a lot in my young adulthood. And now it's cultivating the brain and preparing myself for the new world in this transition, and observing it, and giving myself a strategy to survive it for those that also are in the same boat as me, and they have the infrastructure, hope to strategize their survival through this transition. Okay? And so people don't realize how much collecting things and doing so many things in this environment takes out of you. People don't realize trying to keep up with the image of the old world values will destroy you in this environment. A slave to image and a slave to material wealth will always be a slave. You have no one to blame but yourself if you think you're a slave. And if you don't think you're a slave and you're a slave to material wealth, that world is being destroyed as we speak. The environment has changed. And so, yeah, Africa is up and coming. Okay, Africa is going to go through their own morality and the selling of certain sexualities and the religion and all of that. So they have those storylines to work with, and they have the Adam and Eve to deal with as far as, being punished for violating the laws of life. And here's the proof, okay? Banished from the Garden of Eden because of immune system corruption. But again, we've had that instilled in us, marriage and sexuality on all different types, and the drugs and the alcohol. And so we're going to watch now Africa go through that, and they'll go through their own material, collecting wealth and influence and likes and baubles and singing and dancing and poetry and all this stuff. So we're going to watch them go through that process like we went through, and they'll have their own serial killers because there'll be people who were in that situation and died suddenly, because that's also happening simultaneously. And so they're getting the taste of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s and 90s, and even today, all in like probably till 2100. Okay, because I don't imagine the Georgia Guidestones of 500 million will be realized probably by 2100. And so we have like the next something years. How many years we have until 2100? We're in 2023. So yeah, we have a few decades to go through. I mean, 2050 seems like it's far away, but 2030 is closer. It's like 6 or 7 years. Then 2040, then 2050, 2060, 2070. And we got to go through all this great reset, global warming. The LHC, Large Hadron Collider, is going to be upgraded, so there's more proton to proton collisions. And so we're going to see even a difference in the atmosphere. And you'll feel it. I mean, again, before I didn't feel the difference of having my husband come home before 2019. Okay, it was just what it was, right? I was doing the J world and enjoying stuff, and then 2019 came around, and then 2020, and then there's the pandemic, and then I'm getting all these hives and all these things and headaches and everything. I'm like, holy shit! So there's a lot going on. So yeah, I can only imagine that any feeling that I get and all that will be even more, will be accelerated to who knows, maybe more aggressive. And then I'll just keep eating for the level of aggressiveness in my environment and being very careful who I'm around, because that's more negatives I got to deal with that I have to release. Okay? And so that's what I'm saying. Be very aware of how aggressive it's going to be. We're in this now, not a slow boil, but it's an increasing boil. Okay? And so they're saying, yeah, one day you'll be paid for having babies, but whatever, that's fine. Because when you take on having babies, you're signing on the dotted line that you'll be sacrificed. That's pretty much it. Okay. I'm not going to go to there. Well, if Adam and Eve were released from the Garden of Eden, pleasure and paradise, because they violated the laws of the garden, then why are you saying you want to take back paradise if you're in it, Jillian? Because we have people in the Garden of Eden who don't take accountability and running up their biological credit in pleasure and paradise, frolicking with snakes, destroying the garden. But you'll see they'll be let back in via childbirth, be cast out when God decides to call in the loan, and everyone was born in the Garden of Eden. Now Eve must take back the garden without fear of being cast out or in chains. Right now, many Eves are in chains in the Garden of Eden because Eden is overrun. Eden is overrun. Eden was overrun. Eden is overrun. The system is casting out everyone who violates the laws of life faster during climate change. Okay? So Adam and Eve is really a symbol of human condition. When you violate the laws of life, you get cast out, called death. When you corrupt your body, mind, and spirit from anything, then you can figure out what that is. Then yes, death is the outcome. You'll be cast out to the hinterlands, the universe. And so I did a screenshot of the African report files, and that this post said, marriage between a man and woman is also marriage between man and the church, who is the bride of Christ. Destroying the first union is destroying also the second. Therefore, Africa will be not yield to a millimeter in this. Cardinal Robert Sarah. So that's the Catholicism making its way into Africa. And so then you see some of the people's responses. African churches must separate from Western Christian in toto. In toto, yeah. The African Catholic Church must declare independence from Rome. So now you'll see the offshoots. Okay? And that's how religion isn't horrible per se. It just gives people a parameter and a limitation and a framework to work within. So that way they're not just completely like chaotic and destructive. That there is some regulation through morality, through the law, through even peer pressure. Because, yeah, when you're married to someone, you're not supposed to be screwing everybody out there. You're not supposed to be taking home prostitutes. Okay, when you're married to someone, you keep it within the marriage. All right, so that's why they have religion and morality and 10 Commandments and all that, because it's a way to keep things in order, not chaotic. And if you need to be outside of that situation, of your current situation, then you do it in a step-by-step process in an honorable way. You ask for a divorce, or you walk away from something. But so yeah, Africa is going to be going through what we went through as far as sexuality and marriage, and then go through all that stuff, and then of course the blood types and all that. But I hear that there's more O positives in Africa, but there is A's and B's out there. And so, yeah, a lot of America has a lot of A's and B's. Where there's 15% of us are A's and B's. And then the rest is like O positive or O negative. But, yeah, they're bringing in immigrants. The border is open. And these immigrants are probably like O's, will take the place of the people who are dying suddenly, who are the positives or the negatives, A positive or A negative, whatever, that are dying suddenly because they can't handle the environment and their lifestyle. And so the system has to replace people who are dying, because who's going to do all the jobs? Who's going to keep the infrastructure going? Okay, so that's why the borders are open, and I know people are having an issue with that, but what are you going to do? And so a disposable society is a society choosing to participate in race to the bottom of death and faster in this environment. And so if you're going to work, right, find a way to prolong your own longevity, or else you're just giving away your life force to somebody else until you're dead. Currently, I had a few hives yesterday on my neck, but I felt great. That was the other day, not today. I haven't had any hives today. And I decided not to do any more grocery delivery services. I will go with my husband on the weekends. I think I'm going to be okay with being exposed to the public once in a while, and it's not so bad. The streaming service they offered with Walmart wasn't as good on my TV anyways, because it was unstable. Paramount, I mean, it was okay on my phone, but on my TV, it wasn't. Their server is too unstable. And so I was downsizing a lot. And I was thinking about that on Friday. This is all on Friday. I wrote this on Friday. And so I was highly energetic. There was a lot going on Friday. And that's probably why people are getting afflicted with so many with the new variant that's coming around, because it was so highly energetic. And of course, all the negatives and the blood types are now even realizing themselves. And so I was just thinking about downsizing, get rid of so much stuff, and da-da-da. And I did. And actually, I'm glad I downsized and took away certain things that I didn't need, because then, I could feel that we can take on a few things that we need without it completely bankrupting us. So I just don't like to take on so much. And so anyways, I would rather go out there because I know when I do order stuff through like the delivery services, I tend to order a lot more. Maybe some of it's more expensive, some of it's not. And then you get a tip. And I'm like, okay, I usually give a $20 tip. So on top of that, I'm giving $20 to somebody. Then I could be doing it myself. And I'm not so sensitive to the environment. I know what I got to deal with. Okay, so so I said on Friday that yesterday was highly energetic, and I had a few epiphanies about collecting stuff. It's a good time of year to take inventory on what you really don't need. And in my opinion, I think it's a lot easier for women to downsize than it is for men. Men are told they must collect things in order to be a man, a slave to material things, because when they work hard, what do they do with their money? If they're not in indefinite life, they will spend everything on the here and now. See, when you're in indefinite life, you don't need to collect so much stuff. You're not trying to accomplish so much stuff and collect stuff and get to a certain level within a very short amount of time. When you finally realize that you don't have to die someday, and you know how to navigate your environment so you can prolong your life, then it's not about collecting shit. It's about finding ways to save your own life and prolong your life without taking on so much to take away from your life, okay? And so when someone is disposable and they're trying to accomplish so much, then they're trapped in collecting stuff and getting all the experiences they can within a short amount of time. And that's what the system is trying to eradicate. So that's why they accelerate the environment. So those who are all about doing everything and disposable, well, you'll do it, but you'll die faster if you can even realize your bucket list. When you don't take care of yourself, really, when you think about it, when you don't pull back and chill out for a minute and figure out how to take on stuff without taking on everything all at once, then you might not even make it to your bucket list. You might have 10 things on your bucket list, right? And you only realize maybe 2 of them, because the environment is that aggressive. You have to learn how to pull back on almost everything if you want to achieve your bucket list, if that's what your intention is, right? And so men are told they must collect things in order to be a man, right? And so a slave to material things, because when they work hard, what do they do with the money? And if they're not about indefinite life, they will spend everything on the here and now and spend themselves out of existence, and they're trapped. And so when you scale down your work habits, God forbid, right? You scale down your outgoing expenses. You save your energy, and you can put the money towards the things that are most important. Your house, climate control, utilities and food, and of course, the internet. If you must work so hard to make so much money, then you want to spend so much money and buy things. And people do, and they supersize me everything. They supersize me generation. Watch them buy everything under the sun because they can. Your energy is now stretched so thin, working for all the nice things and the relaxation you think you will get with all the nice things. That's the trappings of wealth. People die sooner. Now I understand men and even some women. That's why when you are in a relationship and you are working, what exactly are you working for? Who are you working for? And you could have several different employers. And if you're working for your husband and a job and a heavy social life with kids, a woman is stretched thin, and she is the sacrificial lamb. Because imagine having a bunch of kids and working for the husband and doing all these things. And the husband's only really responsible for his job, maybe if things outside the house. but then the woman has to take care of the kids for the most part, unless the man steps in. But even then, she bore the kids, so she already has percentages of her life force taken away, and they're working against her if they are the same blood type or opposite RH factors. Okay? And so I remember that when my husband's like, well, a couple of years ago, well, maybe you should work, Jillian. And I'm like, what am I working for? What are we working for? And it didn't sound right back then, but now in this environment, you really have to be careful and figure out what exactly are you working for. Because you could be working for somebody else's lifestyle that you probably don't really want. And if their lifestyle is so highfalutin and so aggressive and so fast moving, and you only weigh like 80, 90, or 100 pounds, and they weigh like, 200 pounds, and they can handle all of that crazy lifestyle, then you're going to be used. And then when you can't do it anymore, then it's like, what's wrong with you? Right? When you're depleted from your friends and your family and all these things, that's why you have to figure out, what are you working for? You have to work for yourself first. Because without you, what else? There's nothing else out there. If you're not around, then you can't help whatever's around you. So that's why I figured out that my husband is like, he's badass, O negative. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm O positive, and I'm a woman, and I know what I can bring to the relationship, but I don't want him to spend himself out of existence. I don't want to spend myself out of existence. So I figured out, what it is we need, how we can strategize our survival and take care of things without expending both of us. Okay, what's the point of both people leaving this earth? And if the other person says, okay, you're supposed to die someday, and they have the capacity and the ability, and you don't spend them out of existence, and you're not running up bills and all that shit, and they choose to have whatever, and they made that choice, that's fine. And that's how you're going to save yourself. Because you got to figure out, what the fuck are you working for? And really, when you think about it, you got to work for yourself. You really have to work. You have to save yourself. And that's a hard concept to get out there when you have people who are like, oh gosh, everybody has to work. Everybody has to work. Working for what? And so people that want you to work for their lifestyle, they'll find every way to justify how you should be. And then when you're bringing this money so you can do this, and they're like, I'll do. That's what I'm saying. When you can figure out that when you force a person to figure out how to work within what they're making and not rely on the other person, then they will have to then figure out how to strategize living within a certain means so they're not overextending themselves. And if they do overextend themselves, they'll pay for it. Okay? But that's the thing with couples, is some people take advantage of the other person. And that other person is now enslaved into that lifestyle. And that's what women have to be very careful of, is that men will enslave them if they can, if they allow it. And men do, whether it's with children or with other jobs. And then, of course, it's like, oh, they say you're a saint for working so hard, as she's sacrificing herself. Okay? And so that's something that women have to figure out for themselves, if they're worth saving, or if they're going to be the sacrificial lamb and be the saint. But then they can't blame anyone for their position, because they put themselves in that position. So a woman is stretched thin. If a man is working for his wife in a job and his wife stays home, she better not spend him out of existence. I don't believe in working for all the material wealth. I believe you should work to prolong your life, not end your life sooner. Humans have been cursed into working themselves to death and working their friends and family to death. That was the slavery system, enslaving your friends and family and society to death. The system is giving you an opportunity to redefine life and work, and even your gender roles. And that does take balance. And also an evolved thought process. And I will say, I love my espresso machine. It's better than coffee, and I don't have to pay $5 a cup of espresso. And I will save money on coffee and a lot of money in the long run. And so, yeah, 2024 will be very exciting to me. By the way, the finance system is not just based on the currency, commodity system. It's also based on the biological currency system of checks and balances and lifespans. Biocellular and wealth management. You also must take accountability of your own biological wealth, as well as what you give your time to. And that's being extremely aware of how the finance system works. When you understand how to operate how you operate and how the system operates, which is why many people get taken advantage of in get-rich-quick schemes, because they don't understand how the system works. It's total manipulation, market manipulation, biological manipulation, even psychological manipulation. And when you're so in a hurry to get rich quick and to get the fast buck and to be in a specific place that you think is like, oh, so wonderful, well, you didn't earn it. You're trying to do the shortcuts. Shortcuts equals, yeah, died suddenly, or you'll get taken advantage of. That was the crypto market. That was all, like, even the mortgage crisis. People were taking advantage of, oh, you know, you can get a house, a $10,000 house on no income and shitty credit. But you'll be in a variable loan that's going to be then shot up like a, you know, and then your payments are going to be like double, triple, and quadruple, and the people are upside down. Yeah, oh yeah. But that's the thing, when you want to spend so much and then you want to go and get rich quick, that's how people get screwed. That's how people get screwed, because the greed. They think they get something for nothing. When you learn how to scale down and pull back, not only will it save your life, but you can also save some money. Not only will you save your life, but you can also save some money. But people who expect to die will spend everything out of existence. That's a disposable economy. And people destroy Earth through that, and that's a race to the bottom. Watch all your friends and family racing to the bottom. And you can't make something out of nothing. Building wealth is something you've done within. Building wealth is your longevity. The addiction to making so much money is making somebody else rich, taking away your resources. Smoke and mirrors. The world is not what you think, and innovation comes out of the death culture. Now you have choices, okay? And so I'm not out there to save anybody. I'm not out there spending everything when I feel like I need to chill out, I'll chill out. When I spend time with my husband and not split my affections of doing the Facebook Live and hang with my husband and trying, I figure out what takes priority. So when my husband's home, except for that one day yesterday, because he was sleeping and I had things that I needed to get out of my system and verbalize. But for the most part, when we're hanging out together, it's like a holiday or something else, and he's not trying to sleep, because yesterday was like our Friday. Not a Friday, yesterday was our Sunday, because today he was working, he had to be up early. But he actually left yesterday in the afternoon. But anyways, I will put my attention towards him and not on I'll do my stuff on Facebook, but I don't do a Facebook Live, because it does take energy out of me. But this is energy that's well spent for me, because I hear myself and I get epiphanies from that. Okay? So, yeah. Know your boundaries. Oh, yeah, we're number 9. We're the 9th and the youngest human species, because there was other human species before us, but we're also relatively the most evolved. All right. Oh, yeah. So, listen to this. Someone posted this, what Ayn Rand said. And I'm telling you, we are in a scale down. We are in another great reset. People don't know it, but we are. So this is what a meme said. The scariest prediction ever. On February 2nd, 1905, American philosopher and writer, Russian-born Elisa Zinovina, better known in the literary world as Ayn Rand, was born in St. Petersburg, died in March 1982 in New York. These were her words. When you notice that to produce, you need to get permission from those who do not produce anything. When you check that money flows to those who do not deal with goods, but with favors. When you realize that many become rich by the bribery and for influence more than by your work, and then that the laws do not protect you against them, but on the contrary, they are the ones who are protected against you. When you discover that corruption is rewarded and honesty becomes a self-sacrifice, then you can assert without fear of being wrong that your society is doomed. And yet people did survive. Okay? Bribery, favors, okay. It's strategy. And yet people did survive. Every society goes through a great reset at some point. That is the nature of a disposable culture. Be the one to survive. And so, yeah, corruption is rewarded because you're choosing. You're given all these choices. We've said that's why they have the abortion clinics. Margaret Sanger, whatever. was trying to help the women not become sacrificial lambs to those who were enslaving her to have babies. It wasn't just like eugenics. I mean, yeah, I could see on that side of it, but who bears the brunt of that taxing of the immune system in the body? It's the woman. And who gets awarded the babies? Usually the women. Some men do, okay? But we've been told every side. We've been told the downsides to everything that we're doing, and so we choose. And so if you, and some people don't choose, and they get victimized because of how the family raised them and all that stuff. But we are in I wrote that negative times a positive equals a negative. So the negative is the government times the positive, the population equals a negative. The government will always regulate the population, always. The population will do what they do. They will have their bunch of kids and all their addictions and all of their pleasures in paradise and all of their activism and all that stuff. And the government has to be the balancing force. Because if the government wasn't there, the people would destroy each other, destroy themselves, be completely in excess, and they would go into extinction. And so a negative times a positive and negative is the negative is the government, the people are the population is the positive, and the government will always regulate. And now they're giving you a choice because you signed on the dotted line, you were told all the downsides, you read the inserts, read the back of the bottle, you were told what it is could happen if you did A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And if you said, yes, I'm going to do it because I don't care because I'm gambling. And when you gamble, especially when someone else built the fucking house that you're gambling in, you can't expect to always win. Maybe you might, but maybe you won't. And when someone manipulates stocks and manipulates the crypto and pushes up and inflates things, and you think you're all rich on paper like Bernie Madoff did to everything, the whole Ponzi scheme, and you want to be greedy, you did it to yourself. And so yes, a society that is on the downward decline, that's already corrupted, corruption will be rewarded because you're already in a downward slide. And so now you have to understand what the corruption is, you understand how everything works, and choose for yourself. And if you choose to take the shortcuts, and you choose to want to get rich quick, and you choose to go and spend so many resources and be out there all over, knowing that the government saying, hey, maybe you should wear a mask, stay home, stay safe, maybe you shouldn't travel so much, maybe that, and you still like, yeah, fuck you, I'm going to do whatever I want. Whose fault is that? It's yours. And so I said, and here's ancestral mathematics. And someone says, oh, it's about freedom, right? Ancestral mathematics to give you life and fight for your freedom if you need it. Okay? Whatever. About the whole freedom shit. But 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 second great-grandparents, 32 great-grandparents, 64 fourth great-grandparents, 128 fifth great, and 2, okay, it's a lot. So you have 4,094 ancestors over the last 400 years. That's a lot of dying and reproducing and evolution. That's a lot of predisposed issues. That's a lot. And I can see why there's great resets in between each one of those, because you do exhaust the petri dish and people glitch. And so you see how fast humans multiply, right? Click on both pictures and read everything. You're free as soon as you earn your freedom through pain and suffering and evolution. Resistance was always for the slaves. You had to be smarter than those around you. You have to be smarter than those around you. Even smarter than your employer. Corruption is always rewarded when the system is trying to scale everyone down. If you want to survive, you have to face your own corruption and do the opposite of everybody in society for the most part and still abide by the laws. Society will always be doomed by those who are disposable and deem themselves disposable, and the system wants volunteers. I don't volunteer to be disposable. How many of your ancestors were sacrificed during great resets and they probably didn't get the choice? And maybe you do. And maybe you don't. A lot of died suddenly. I'm discovering AI. As far as the pictures, so awesome. Now I can develop pictures through AI and I don't have to take from somebody else, even though I did before, but no big deal. But now when I write my next book, and it might be just an ebook, my next book, I don't imagine I'll do an actual physical book. I might. But I think that by 2030 I will have an ebook developed through Amazon or some other, ebook outlet, and go through, like, I won't say artificial intelligence, right? I will write what I can, and if I think that artificial intelligence is necessary to help me write it, then I will. But right now I'm just developing my writing skills on my own, not even using any kind of artificial intelligence writing helper. So anyways, so yeah, the AI image creators through Copilot, through Bing, they're not subject to copyright. And so that's what's going to be so amazing, because before you'd have to buy somebody else's images that they developed. Now you go through an image creator, like through Bing or anything else, there's nothing to copyright, because it's all artificial intelligence. And so now you have freedom without having to pay somebody else to develop something or pay for the images they developed. So that's what you're seeing now with some of the pictures I put up there, is stuff that I put into the AI image generator. Some you can't. Some things that you do a prompt and are like, nope, that's against our community standards. I'm like, okay. Oh yeah. So the CIA unveiled the heart attack gun, 1975, a battery-operated gun that shot a dart of frozen water and shellfish toxin. So they had to know the person was allergic to shellfish, right? The dart would have only leave a tiny red dot, and an autopsy would conclude death from a heart attack. See, so that's the thing. That's why it doesn't pay to be allergic to things, because then everything is weaponized. You couldn't go to jail. You couldn't go anywhere where you didn't have control over your surroundings and the food that you have access to. And so that's when you're in a jail, when you have food allergies, shellfish allergies, gluten allergies, when you have milk allergies and meat allergies, and what is it? Pepper allergies. What was that called? I forget. Nightshade allergies. When you have all these food allergies, you are in a jail, and everything could be weaponized against you. And you could die from just breathing in someone who has lactose. You never know with people what they're dying from. If they have food allergies and they're in an enclosed space and the ectoplasm is so thick, can you imagine? That's probably why even the diet suddenly is, because now you have this shellfish toxin or lactose toxin or meat toxin or food toxin, gluten toxin that's floating around in your atmosphere. You think it's just eating the food? Sometimes it could be breathing in somebody, like a second, I won't say secondhand smoke, but breathing in somebody else's ectoplasm, breathing in their microbes, which is why it does not pay to be food intolerant or allergic to anything, and it does not pay to be cured, thus trapping those allergens, antigen, antibodies inside. All sickness is released, and people need all food to maintain life. If you are that food intolerant and allergic, the public will induce rapid antibody growth, thus heart attacks and strokes. In this highly accelerated environment, everyone is a vaccine or a vector. Your intolerance weaponized the world against you. It was you all along and no one else. That's some crazy shit. And so all antigen antibody programming must be regulated based upon intention. And then I wrote this. And so the West is weak and intolerant with food allergies. Here are your replacements, because the borders are open, somebody says. Diet suddenly mainly affects the weakest, most intolerant. Blood type O, probably the most biologically intolerant. Blood type A and B are already sustaining immunological antigen antibody wars within release the demons, eat all food, and rest. Yes, O positive is the most common blood type, accounting for 38% of the population. O negative is the second most common blood type, accumulating to 6% of the population. Wow. Oh, see, there's that balancing force, right? O is the most common blood type because it's the ancestral form. The A and B mutations have only appeared in the last 20,000 years and haven't spread through the population yet. According to Harvard Health, type O was the original blood type of early humans who were hunter-gatherers. However, most recent research suggests that there were several mutations that can turn A or B genes into O. Okay? And so according to NPR, type A is the most ancient blood type, and type O is a mutation that appeared in about 5 million years ago. Some evidence suggests that blood types have evolved over millions of years. Type O is the universal donor, meaning it can be received by anyone in a blood transfusion. It's particularly common among indigenous populations of Central and South America, where it approaches 100%. And then you wonder why. Yes, they're allowing the Mexicans, of course, anyone from Central America, South America to come up here, because they will replace those who are intolerant, who are already at the end of their genetic line. It's how the system figures out how to change out the old, change out the intolerant, and bring in those who have resources to give. And so this guy said, Bill Malugan, I don't know who he is, but new, Lukeville, Arizona right now. Only 2 Border Patrol agents here to move this massive 100 of legal immigrants from around the world to a processing area. We continue to see enormous numbers of men from Africa who tell us they're going to sanctuary cities around the U.S. Okay. Yeah, it is what it is. You can't stop evolution. You can't stop it. Okay. So I'm so glad I married blood type O, though he's blood type O negative, which is strengthening me. He always is, because he always antagonizes me with that stupid shit. And it's fun, and it then becomes annoying. And I do the same thing to him. We both, antagonize each other, and then also help each other. So we are definitely an interesting balance, because we are more tolerant to the environment, because the environment is that aggressive. Now we just have to tolerate each other. And blood types A and B are at war with each other. Well, they're at war with themselves. And you think about it, but I say with each other, really it's with themselves, because of the antigen-antibody programming, wearing each other down. Okay, so if you have 2 A's in the house, wear each other down. 2 B's in the house, wear each other down. 2 opposites of the negative and positive RH factors, you can't let somebody wear you down. You have to know what you're dealing with. And that's why I don't work. I work for my husband, and I work for myself. But if I were to go out there and work then work for my husband, and then work for myself, that would be splitting my affections 3 times, and I may not survive it. That's a lot to deal with. Okay? But if I'm going to work for someone, I'd rather work for my husband and work for my family, and then have him live within his means. And I don't spend him out of existence. So you have to know what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with. Okay? And so, because of the antigen-antibody programming, wearing each other down. Blood type O is tolerant to the A and B antibodies, but it's not necessarily vice versa. Blood type A and B have less tolerance to COVID, high-frequency amplified microbes. The ABO system, blood group A, has A antigen on the red blood cells with anti-B antibodies in the plasma, but they don't have anti-A antibodies in their body, because that's the mycoplasma. They have antigen, but no their own antibodies, and so they're fighting themselves, at war with themselves, and they have to keep eating. Okay? Blood group B has B antigens, but no B antibodies, only A antibodies. And so, blood group O has no antigens, so we're not fighting against ourselves. But both anti-A and anti-B antibodies in the plasma, so we have a tolerance to blood type A and B. And then we carry the weight of the world in our bodies, right? And then blood group AB has both A and B antigens, oh my gosh, but no antibodies. Wow. And those are very rare. And it means that they would have to get the V's to get those antibodies from the government. So that's some crazy shit. All right. And so I read somewhere, somebody was following me, and I went to their page, and I saw that they had a baby, and they had no they had no V's, and the baby died. Now, and they said they did everything right. No V's, they don't do GMO, they're all organic, and the baby passed away, and their baby's going to have to go through an autopsy. Well, I'm not going to say, I didn't say anything on that, because I'm not a friend of theirs, but that's the thing, is you're going to find that those who have babies, and those babies don't have their own antibodies, and they don't survive when they're surrounded by people who have antigen that they have no antibodies for. They're not going to be able to survive. That's died suddenly. That's the issue with the arguments of taking one side or the other of the anti-V world. Because some people are born with no antibodies, and they have to have helpers from the government. And that's why they're trying to guide reproduction carefully, because when you're developing babies that are blood type A and B both, and they have no antibodies, they have no protection. even just sitting in a room with people that's not even sterilized, right? They would have no protection. They would die. As soon as they breathe the air, because I'm telling you, just being around my husband and not even kissing him, I had the hives when it was that accelerated. When I walk into a crowded place now in a highly accelerated environment, I feel differently. I feel my head filling up. Can you imagine the baby that has no antibodies and no defense system? When they're born into a world that is full of antigen and they have no protection, that's the died suddenly. And this person doesn't understand this. I didn't either. I finally figured it out. It took me 7 years to figure this out. Plus, I understand the blood types. Finally, I fucking figured. And then incorporating the integers, the whole rules of integers. Okay, because that whole negative times a positive, negative times a negative, and positive times a positive all has to do with antibodies and biology. And so vaccines are supposed to give blood types A and B the antibodies from the blood type O. At least that's the theory. However, extreme environmental intolerances induce died suddenly, also known as heart attack and strokes. Extreme environmental intolerances means extremely deficient body, starving too. But what I failed to mention is that that baby has no protection. If they were blood type A and B baby, they have no protection. They would die on contact when they have that much, if they don't get some kind of therapy. That's where the therapies are probably necessary for babies who are that type of blood group A and B. But people don't know their own blood types, and they're flying blind, and they're blaming. Okay? So that's why the system is advocating the V's, even at childbirth. Yeah. That's why I don't want children. And so type A is the oldest blood type and has been found in hominids or prehumans. Probably the most intolerant blood type, though B is not its nemesis when you think about it. I should delete that. That's not really true. Because I was in a different headspace and I corrected that, so I'm going to delete that sentence. And give me one moment. No, I'm not going to go back. That's fine. All right. Oh, yes. If Israel, Sephardic Jewish people have relatively low numbers in blood type O groups, and COVID is mainly affecting blood type A and B, then stop blaming Israel and the Jews for everything. These are for all the anti-SEMITES people. Okay? And whatever's going on in the Middle East, they're defending themselves and everyone's having their issues. I even watched, people say, oh, it's propaganda, Jillian. But I watched The Engineer on Netflix, and it was about the issue between, the Hamas and Israel. And yeah, people are building pipe bombs and things to go and bomb you and be a suicide bomber. You could say, oh, that's Hamas radicalizing them to go do that. Whatever, people are doing it. If you're that easily radicalized to go and do something and hate somebody that easily, to then warrant someone to retaliate because of what you did, shit. We have people who are that easily influenced by somebody. So anyways, stop blaming Israel and the Jews for everything. Your deficiencies from belief is the reason why you are scapegoating everyone. And so blood groups in Sephardic Jews, Hebron, Jerusalem, Israel, Sephardic Jews are the descendants of the Jews who were expelled from Spain in 1492 and from Portugal in 1497. I didn't know that. There are some indications that Jews settled in Spain in the early centuries of the Christian era. During their long sojourn in the Iberian Peninsula, migrations to and from North Africa took place. Okay, North Africa, right? The bottom of the Middle East, right? The present study is concerned with Sephardic Jews from the Balkan countries, Turkey, Bulgaria, Greece, and Yugoslavia, who came to Israel between the years 1949 to 1957. The ABO, MN, RH, HR groups of 200 persons were examined. As may be seen from Table 1, the frequency of the O phenotype is rather low in the Sephardic community, in comparison with figures obtained by us for Moroccan Jews, 37.7%, and Tunisian Jews, 39.5%. It is suggested that the high group O frequency indicates a Berber influx. It seems, however, that the African component has penetrated the Sephardic Jews only to a limited extent, in spite of the frequent contact over centuries. An interesting feature is the high frequency of the phenotype A, namely 45%, of which is the highest figure so far found in the Jewish community. study by the U.S. The high A group level found in the Sephardic Jews may be regarded as a later acquisition, confirming the well-known historical fact that their routes to the Ottoman Empire led through Europe rather than through North Africa. It may be noted that the frequency of about 42% of the group's A was also found in the same population of the Balkan Peninsula, e.g. Turks, Serbians, Bulgarians. Okay. All right? So I don't want to freaking hear it like, oh, the Jews are trying to destroy everybody. You're doing everything. No. There's got to be some kind of tolerance and evolution. That's the main thing. And I got to do something really quick because I don't like having that out there. I got to go back to my other page and correct that because a B is not the nemesis. And that's wrong of me to put there because I was still in the middle. So I'm sorry, I got to correct this. I mean, give me 1 second. Search. All right. B is the nemesis. No, it's not. No. Oh, shit. What? Okay. Now I got to find that stupid picture. Okay, give me 1 second. Some things I just have to take care of right now because I just have to. I know I could leave it for whatever, but what's the point? I might as well do it now because I don't want it to be out there any longer than it has to. Okay. And if I see it there, I will delete it now. And that's kind of my, what do we call it, obsession for perfection and correction and chasing after information, because we got to know how this world works and how to protect ourselves from the world that we live in. And so there we go, right there. Okay, so there's that. Okay, I'm gonna correct that because I do mimic posts to my other page, the Jelly Juice page, and I'm right now correcting that. Okay. All right, very good. And that's all I wanted to do. Okay. Shit, now I just lost my place here. That's okay. Okay. Give me one. I'm not going all the way up to the top. Well, am I? No. All right. Okay. Almost there. Okay. Gosh. There's that. All right. Okay. Okay, so there we go. So now I'm here at this point. Type O. Famous personalities is Queen Elizabeth, John Lennon, Paul, and I went through that yesterday, so I'm not going to belabor that. And so that's why I read the RH blood group about Hitler. Hitler talked about ARH positive blood being of the superior race. Oh, he's type A. That's what it is. He is type A. Yeah. No, type A. That's an old bloodline. That's an old ancient blood that needs to evolve. And that's probably what contributed to his despoticness. And then playing positive, so he can't handle conflict. So he has to be the one to be the aggressor. So he is type A. Hitler is type A. Yeah. And so Hitler talked about the ARH blood type being of the superior race and wanted to wipe out anyone who carried the Rh negative genes. The Jews have a high percentage of Rh negative blood. He felt inferior to Rh negatives, as when he did studies, he was amazed at the intelligence they showed because above his more easy to control and less bright superior race. Oh. He wanted to convert the occult teachings for himself, the teachings about true spirituality that our ancient tribes had passed down for thousands of years. Okay, yeah. So yes, that is true. All right, well, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels specifically wanted to exterminate Scottish Highlanders, Britons, Basques, South Slavs, and Czechs. All have a higher percentage of Rh negative or carry it recessively. Their excuse was that they are from an earlier primitive population. Yes, that's true. Rhesus negative blood was the first blood of humans. The ancient shamanistic tribes that inhabited this earth a long time before we created the rhesus positive when we mixed some of our genes with apes. Wow. That's okay. So then I said, now read this. I don't know if I agree. RH positive or less bright, but I entertain all info. Okay, so what did I say? Yeah, I'm not gonna say that because that was not correct. But that's fine. All right. Anyways, all right. So that's that's some interesting stuff. So I will just leave that for right now. Okay. All right. Remember, I'm going through my process, but that wasn't correct for me to say that I don't know if I agree that RH positive or less bright. He wasn't saying that. He was saying that they were much more bright. But anyways, but that was what his intention was, to eradicate. He was A positive. He was A positive. That's insane. Wow. And so World War III, friends, family, public wars, blood wars. Blood war is a competition between people's white blood cells. Blood wars is a performance and installation of art and science project researched and developed during a residency at Symbiotic A, Center of Excellence in Biological Arts and School of Anatomy and Human Biology at the University of Western Australia. The project is funded by John Simon Memorial Guggenheim Foundation. Blood Wars is an art project that looks at the biological reaction of competing human white blood cells and also question traits inherited through the blood. This project is a competition in ironic simulated tournaments where different individuals' white blood cells vie for dominance in a petri dish. So imagine what they're doing in a petri dish and what's going on in your household, what's going on in your community, what's going on in continents and countries, okay? Blood Wars playfully engage with age-old debates about blood traits and the powerful histories of blood, designed like a series of World Cup tournament playoffs. The cellular winners of each round goes on to fight another participant. Participating in Blood Wars brings a better understanding of the process of blood cell division, cell staining, immune cells, and the functioning of the immune system, time-lapse microscopy, and laboratory protocol, as well as Blood Wars can function as a mediation tool used for conflict resolutions, to end wars and solve entanglements. Blood trophies are offered to the winners. Blood-filled glass 3-inch globes are housed in a craftsman-like box. And so you can see that. And that's what I'm saying. That's what's going on, okay? Oh my God, I gotta pee. All right, that's crazy. And so, yeah, now playing Mary X, was I saying? White blood cell wars, World War III, spit war, public war, and climate change. I told you, your spit has white blood cells. White blood cells. Yes, saliva contains white blood cells. Saliva is about 99% of water and also contains mucus, electrolytes, epithelial cells, enzymes, antimicrobial agents. When you spit, the white blood cells inside will release weapons to fight bacterial invaders. Okay, and so so there's that, and then you have those are leukocytes, and then you have the erythrocytes that are the RBC that's also interwoven with that, and so you also get the positive and negative, the RH factors. Okay, but they don't say that. They just talk about white blood cells, but then there is the RBC, the red blood cells that have there's components inside the white blood cell wars because they both intermix. It's not they're compartmentalized with blockages. No, they are. Everything is connected, but the system won't connect those dots because it's like the white blood cells, okay, release weapons to fight bacterial invaders, but what about the negatives that are in the blood types? Okay, it's one thing to talk about, okay, you have your own antigen that's attacking you, and then you have antibodies that protect yourself from somebody else, but what about the Rh factors? And then they're saying, oh, yeah, well, COVID, people who are blood type A are more susceptible to COVID. So maybe the COVID is targeting someone like a Hitler. Okay? Like the old world ways of doing stuff. Yeah, the system is trying to find the types of people that are not destructive to others. And so blood type O carries both the microbial A and B antigen antibody programming. Payloads against both A's and B's are more tolerant, but A's and B's are at war with each other, less tolerant. Well, I won't say that. More that they're at war with themselves, but they are at war with each other, think about it. Even though they're protected from each other, which are like, okay, but they also are attacking themselves, and they don't have antigen, or they don't have antibodies against their own antigen. And so they are attacking everybody. Because again, when you are fighting a war inside, that war gets projected and you look for the blame. Okay. And that's still a hard concept. So, Large Hadron Collider CERN, God particle was found. Climate change is the universe recharged. The beginning, that Big Bang was the beginning of the universe. Splitting atoms is death and reproduction. When atom and atom split, we go back to the old world with higher intelligence. You slow down the Big Bang, you can pick and choose what intelligence you want to keep. The old world, like the type A's, is falling away. And so we are in a controlled chaos that will come back in order, but in a different way. That's the Big Bang called climate change, or controlled Big Bang. Good luck. You must be able to assimilate to the changing environment and to your friends and family's white blood cells, and even RBCs, right? Red blood cells. Many are not equipped to assimilate, too much part of the old world. And so I did that AI. My first AI was, well, not its first, but Universe 25. And I said chaos or something. I said like Big Bang chaos. That was the prompt in the Bing AI image creator. And so COVID-19 equals Big Bang. Everything is relative. And you've been conditioned to accept the Big Bang theory, which is relevant, and also die from the outcome eventually. So when the system accelerates the Big Bang, your expectations will be met sooner because you fail to understand the world you live in. You don't want to change. You think there's always going to be some savior to save you from yourself. No, you need to save yourself. No one can do it for you. Not even your politicians. And so you're exactly correct. Corruption isn't rewarded until it's not, because you want to see that, because they want to see you first do your worst at whatever corruption you have. Because you will be made as an example. Scientists rule the world. The politicians play the parts of the puppets. Religion was just a storyline that could be revised and modified based on the evolution and deterioration of the population. Okay? And you can see how easy it is to develop a religion and get a bunch of believers. You already see it in the activist world. Scientists rule the world. War was always meant to build up the strong, destroy the weak, and redevelop the future until the system gets the perfect world they want. But they had to see you in your natural habitat, and many of you have been conditioned never to change, and so you'll be phased out of existence, and they will try to help you enjoy it and be as numb as possible on the way out the door. And that's Universe 25, that rat colony. And we have a lot of different blood types out there. Some are less tolerant than others, and so you do the math on that one. And so if you're so afraid of the VACCINESs, you should be more afraid of the crowds you circulate in, the enclosed spaces in an accelerated environment. You're breathing in all those antibodies and antigen, and you'll either be immunologically attacked because you hold a certain blood type, or you'll be a carrier and be so full of them, you get heart attacks and strokes while releasing your demons on everyone around you. Which is why blood type O are more sturdier and tend to be obese or bigger bone, because they're carrying the weight of the world in their immune system. Of course, with the advent of diet disciplines and plastic surgery, you'll never know what people are unless they actually test themselves and tell you what they are. But it's your friends and family that will be attacking you at the micro level. And I said this. I told you this. Okay, so when you're type A and you're walking into a world of people who have type A, they'll be attacking you. And you don't have any antibodies. You don't have defense. You have to keep eating to replace the energy they're taking from you. And so then I did, the union of opposites, resistance is futile, mycoplasma, yin and yang, the black and white checkerboard. Now you get the whole duality. That's the mycoplasma. That's the beast you're fighting within. And so that's why I put the old man and the young lady together in the one face. And then I also did I did the prompt of fermented cabbage juice, and that's what it showed me. And the Julie juice, and then the Y chromosome, or the antibody, and then the old woman and the young woman together, merged together, fused together. And then the immortality, union of opposites, choose your religion, count down or count up. Okay? And so the J world is like this infinity symbol. And the temporary people are those that say immortality is when it's not living forever, right? It's making every moment count. And that's exactly what those who are living temporaries are making every single fucking moment count, because they know their days are numbered. They're counting down. And they're telling you this too. All right? And so I did a whole bunch of AI stuff with I've pretty much figured out that humans were experiments back then, and there are many Adam and Eves all over the world, and whoever it is that came up, whatever, did so much evolution to humans. And so then the story of Adam and Eve is about humans who violated the laws of their life and corrupted themselves through alcohol, drugs, sex, and fertility. And then they ended up being cast out of the earth into the universe, or cast out of the Garden of Eden. And so to then be plagued with pain and suffering and all of that because they chose to keep replicating their defense system. But then how do you get then human? Well, that's the thing, is that, if you're gonna build a human race, there's gonna be a certain amount of suffering. If you're gonna nation build, there'll be a lot of suffering, and managing that suffering and managing that evolution. And then how do you sustain a perfect society? Well, first of all, you're gonna have to control reproduction, absolutely, and then you have to control just a lot of things that people get lost in excess. Control the alcohol, the drugs, the crazy sex. But even then, they're not going to really control that. They will and they won't. Obviously you can't violate somebody without their permission, so everything is through consent. That's why you have the law. That's why there's age limits and laws and things like that, and the justice system to bring somebody to trial if they violate the law. And there's so much going on. So yeah, Adam and Eve was more of an allegory, giving people a story about crime and punishment, about actions and consequences. That's really, I don't think it's actually one little story. I think it's a story. I don't think it's one little incident. I think it's a story that describes so many of the same incidents and the same outcomes. All right, and so we're in the beginning of Exodus, and then Pip posted this thing about the deathly flower that looks like a skull. And then, yes, there is this white blood cells attacking a parasite. And you see what happens when you have white blood cells that are attacking something. And so white blood cells, white blood cells are your defense system. But imagine when those defense systems turn into predators, when they turn into antigen. Because again, you could have, like I said in my most recent post, those white blood cells can also turn into antigen. The enemy can turn into your protector, and the protector can turn into the enemy, and it can convert like that. Just like the friends that you have out there that are not friends anymore. Just like my old moderators, they were my protectors until I did something that they didn't like or whatever, and then they turn into the enemy. So people can convert just like that. Blood cells can convert just like that based upon the programming. And yeah, it's crazy. And so blood type B is vanishing, was Albert Einstein disliked. Said to be the best physicist of the 20th century, Albert Einstein has been treated as a strange person due to his unbelievable behavior and going at his own pace. It was caused by his blood type B. And John goes, 99% yes, but not this one. I'm like, hell yeah, well, okay. Let's see you prove it. Stick around, John. Stick around. And so when I went to that restaurant, and then I came home the next day, but I came home, and then the next morning I woke up to crazy ass dreams, like a chainsaw. Chasing chainsaw demon nightmares are like residual memories from the public. I blew my nose and sneezed them out after waking up. I don't want to carry the weight of the world in my immune system. So yeah, when I'm out there in the public, I'm taking on people's fears, taking on their desires, taking on all their angst and everything else. And that does, when I'm out in the public and I come home and I go through that process of releasing the demons and processing my environment, you'll get these crazy dreams. So imagine when you finally face your diseases and you go to sleep and you're blowing your nose in the middle of the night and you're sleeping and you have these weird ass dreams or you see shit. I'm telling you, man, you are seeing memories that you've picked up along the way. Memories that you've had, people's anxieties. You're holding on to so much stuff. So yeah, when I'm out there taking on people's demons, it's like we're playing the recordings of their worst times in their world going through my system, and I'm watching it. It's like I'm watching somebody else's life go through my dreams. It's really interesting. And when that chainsaw person came and got to me, because I couldn't move, and they got to me, then I woke up when it was trying to cut off my arm. That's some crazy shit, man. And so there's this meme that says, I was ride or die for people and didn't think twice about running me over. I'm like, yeah, you already accepted terms when you're like, I'm ride or die. You have all your friends like, yeah, I'm ride or die. This is my loyalty. Yeah, okay. And so when you say you're going to die for someone, it means that if they choose to destroy you, right? If they choose to go and spiritually destroy you or whatever, you already accepted those terms. Don't ride or die for anyone. Don't die for anyone. But if you choose to die, then don't be surprised when your kid destroys you, when your friends destroy you, when your families destroy you, when your job destroys you, when you're so ride or die. Don't be fucking surprised when they are the ones that are destroying you. You already accepted the terms. I'm loyal to a point, but I don't die for nobody or anyone. And so, all right, I'm going to read this. The union of two opposites does not serve people on either side. It serves the government scientists. You are just letting them know how weak you are, and you're making it easier for them to manipulate you into another fear. Here's the thing about the VACCINESs. The fact you need them or say you don't need them is a sign the human race has a problem with assimilation and strong childbirths. We should have no problem getting them or not getting them. Okay? It's just fertility. It's like the obelisk. It's like the mosquitoes. It's like any vector that has a certain amount of propulsion to go and then develop a force to upload information, like a virus. Okay? A man or a woman with whatever extremities they use to do whatever, they're penetrating you with information. Fertility. All right? And so the fact that we do have an issue speaks to a larger problem no one is talking about. Were we ever meant to die? And were we supposed to have so many children? Children are an insurance policy for a corrupted immune system. But how far are you going to take it? Insurance is supposed to make you whole, not be taken advantage of or make money from. Ayn Rand was right. The system does not reward corruption because we're in a huge scale down, and that's why the system promoted so many childbirths as well as questioned them and promoted abortion. Catholicism, which is now entering into Africa, is an extremely large community promoting so many childbirths, Mormons and other religions as well. The Democrats and Republicans, the union of two opposites for a particular outcome. These are the questions we need to ask ourselves. Were we ever meant to die? Were we ever meant to have so many children? And was treating disease another avenue to do more experiments with offspring and children and cancer? The fact we have to save ourselves from others, regardless if it's mischaracterized or misplaced energy, says the human race is becoming weaker and weaker. The fact people are dying suddenly, regardless of who you blame it on or what you blame it on, says we are developing very deficient humans. Believe me, if the system wanted all of us to die, we'd all be dead. As far as intentionally poisoning you, anything that is food or drug sold through the commercial means goes through the FDA. If this system depends on the people, they're not going to intentionally destroy you and poison you. Okay? It's your beneficiaries of your insurance policies and estate who would have more of a motive to poison you than your government. Let's say your children. If they know they're going to inherit a big house and all that cash and whatever else you're accumulating, they'll be the ones to be like, yeah, let's do it with mom and dad versus the government. They really don't need your social security number money, okay? They can reprint money all over, but it's your kids. And the people who are your beneficiaries would be the ones to poison you, if they would at all. Come on, get it together. The government needs strong people, not weak ones. And if the population is weaker, the drug gets pulled. And if the food and drugs get recalled, it means that maybe many people in the human race are a lot more intolerant. I mean, a lot of humans are becoming extremely intolerant, if not already. Therefore, allergic reactions, massive food and drug recalls, drug addictions, died suddenly, and there is no guarantee that anything will save you out there if you are already weak. And now with climate change, the weak will get weaker, the strong will become stronger until they become weak. And people in my world, if they actually get it, will have to suffer straddling both worlds. We'll get stronger, so as long as we keep eating and releasing those demons. And it's a fucking bitch to do that, but it's worth it every so often. That's why I stay home and stay safe for the most part. I still have to assimilate to my world, so my husband is the one that brings me all the immunity. My husband is my own vaccine. In so many different ways, luckily you're both blood type O, but then it's a negative I have to contend with. And he's like, I don't understand what's going on. Well, no shit, because honey, you're a negative, I'm a positive. I don't have it confirmed that he's a negative, but that's probably what I gathered because it's not like I'm carrying so much of that disease within. It's the fact that that's the negative. But again, that's not mainstream because it's part of the whole Rogam world of the fertility of babies, right? Okay, I don't go into that again, but people are harboring a microbial shit baby that's full of negatives that is causing their autoimmune disorders and having them be under the influence so they don't feel the pain of something taking over them. All right? And so it's the negative that I have to deal with, not so much of anything else. It's the negative that he holds. And I'm fine with it because it's the strengthening. It's making me strong. And so we have the strength to handle each other and the demons we exchange back and forth. But I know he's stronger than me. He has a lot more conditioning out there in the different weather changes of people because he's negative. He's so negative. I'm telling you, he has to be. And I'm conditioning myself for the environment. I'm becoming a stronger blood type O. It's taken me 3 years to become conditioned to this environment without becoming extremely sick when exposed to the public. Okay, so you don't hear me coughing like I did. Remember a couple years ago, I sounded like I was a freaking horse or a seal, and I'd be so stuffed up, and I'd be so like, oh my God. And you saw all the videos that I did when I was taking on something or triggering something. Okay, and so just within the last year, it's gotten better. Every exposure, every climate change, it's becoming so much better. And so sickness is the release with so many people past and present and future. So sickness is the release of so many past, present, and future issues. Too much sickness is not good because you're expending resources you have to keep replacing. And do you have the time and resources to do that? Not enough sickness means you have demons within and you'll age out faster. Everything is about balance. Remember, those who are type A and B and in their youth, they had an overactive immune system, though it wasn't obvious, but they were cured. They were able to go to school and do well in school and all that. And those that were type O, like me, were feeling the evolution. And we were dealing with, and if we were O positive, we were feeling the evolution, but if we were O negative, it wouldn't be that bad. So you have the A positives or the let's say the A negatives and the B negatives and the O negatives. Well, the A's and B's would have to deal with being around other A's and B's, but they would have that whole situation that they'd have to get a vaccine for. So, okay. So then they'd be relatively holding the line. They'd be in that resistance where they can hold the line, be cured, and study their homework and be awesome. And someone like me was like, I'm attacked at all sides. I'm screwed. I'm surrounded by probably a bunch, because Silicon Valley is so many programmed people are probably A's and B's, okay? Especially Saratoga, I'm sure. And I'm in a household of A's and B's and negatives. So, oh my God, I didn't stand a chance. And so I had a lot of sickness. All right. Sickness is a release of so many past, present, future issues, but too much sickness is not good because you're expending resources you probably have to keep replacing and you don't have them. And do you have the time and resources to do that? Not enough sickness means you have demons within and you'll age out faster. Everything's about balance. I mean, everything. And what are you balancing and why and what's your intention? And so then humans, see, crocodiles do not die of old age because they do not age biologically. Instead, they die of either starvation or disease. And that's humans too. Humans also die from starvation and leading to disease. And so humans might be eating food, but what are they feeding? Are they feeding the enemy or are they feeding themselves? And the fact that we have been conditioned to resist disease, treat disease, and starve disease is why climate change has been so brutal to so many people. Okay. And so IFL Science likes to make fun of conspiracy theorists, but whatever. So IFL Science says, conspiracy theorists think that the Large Hadron Collider transferred us into a parallel universe in the latest. Well, I'd say this. They're probably mischaracterizing because everybody has, well, I don't say they're just based on what people think. But every single one of us that has taken on a different belief system or, I don't know, has a different way of looking at the world, that's a parallel universe. Some people are living their own different realities parallel to others. Who says all realities must be cloned? You are the universe. You have choices how the universe impacts you and then how you impact the universe. Yes, we are living parallel lives. We have a system going on in one direction, okay? And we have people in the system going a million different directions. That's parallel universes. Accelerating time causing people mass amounts of people to remember things differently. You could have two universes happening simultaneously. And there's the Mandela effect too. And so, and even when I'm trying to think of something I forgot that my husband remembered or something. I don't remember. Oh yeah, my husband said, okay, so this is so weird. So the other day, we were talking on the phone. I think it was like Thursday. We were talking on the phone, and he said that he told me this. I don't remember him saying that, but he said he told me that he's going to bed and he would call me the next morning. I don't remember that. So I'm waiting for his phone call because he said he would call me before he go to bed. I think that was Thursday, yeah. And so I called him at 6 p.m. because I'm like, well, is he done or was he doing? I don't know. Was he done eating? I don't know what the hell. The call, he said, oh, I'm in bed. I'm like, okay. I told you I was going to bed and I was going to call you the next morning. And so I woke him up. I'm like, I don't remember you saying that. So maybe he thought he told me. And that could be a parallel universe where he thought he told me this, but he didn't. Or I don't remember, but I would have remembered that. But see, that's the thing. Did he tell me this? I can't go back in time because I didn't record it, so I wouldn't know this. But him and I could be living parallel lives sometimes when the environment, because I remember I'm just going so fast, but I'm thinking, am I going that fast and I don't even remember this? I mean, how can that memory just be wiped away? I don't know. Okay? So that's like one instance of where I'm thinking, like, am I nuts here? Did he actually tell me that he was going to call me? And I have no answer for that, okay? So that could be the whole thing of when you're dealing with people's immune system and memories, and you can have a whole mass of people with the same kind of memory, and maybe they're remembering things differently based upon their immune system and what kind of microbes they hold, and maybe even what blood types. And so when the system changes, like when the environment changes and the LHC accelerates, certain blood types remember things differently. So then, yeah, I could see certain amount of people collectively remember things one way, and another group of people collectively remember things another way, and then you have this whole Mandela effect. And that's based upon the blood types and the diseases and all the different factors. And then there's agreement. And then can you remember, like, Shazam or this, or was Nelson Mandela dead back in the 80s, or did he die recently? I mean, that was some of the things they were saying, or some examples of people remembering things differently. Okay? This is what I'm saying. The world's kind of crazy. The world's kind of freaking crazy, but it's not. Oh my gosh, that was crazy. All right. People are funny. What the hell? Okay. All right, so there's that. So then, when the children cry. I like the 80s songs. All right. I'm not going that again. All right, I'm not going to go there with that. The old world is disappearing, so. Big Bang. Already did that. Rh negatives are the ones who are carriers of negatives or attacking the positive, like Pac-Man. Okay, I already did that. Okay. And then the Rh factor is communicable. Rh factor found on chromosome 11. So that's probably why 11 is so significant. That's the balance of positive and negative. 9/11. That was the negative now now encroaching on the positive. That was 9/11. And that's the government regulating the people. Okay, I'm not going to that. All right. And so virus equals Rh negatives attacking Rh positives via spittle and bodily fluids. And that's why I'm so hungry when I get exposed to so many things, as well as releasing colony units of who knows what. Repairing the damage and releasing the demons, because I won't have an immunity against Rh negative ectoplasm floating in my atmosphere. That's why you have to have an amazing immune system to let the virus run its course. Vital information resource under siege are the Rh negatives trapped in the Rh positive bodies or running roughshod, and maybe some of it being released with a few attacking. No different than different blood types, A and B and all that stuff. Okay, I think I read that. All right, I think I read, yeah. So I don't want to go over, now I'm going to go back to, okay. And so antibodies can convert into predator or police officer, gang member or police officer. But it's not just men, but men are more aggressors of protectors or predator. It's also women. So how did that come to be? Because offspring or sexual reproduction comes from defense and antigens. It's the antigen antibody programming developing offspring so your child will become either be a predator or a police officer, or both because of mycoplasma. Then the system must regulate and develop boundaries if they don't have any or were not taught them at home. Reason why they say men might be phased out in the future, because we may not be developing so many offspring who must defend itself from predators. And that was the family. It wasn't just being workers on a farm, it was defending itself against warring factions. So you have to build an army in order to protect yourself, to protect that genetic line. But when you're not being attacked or being hunted and attacked, then you're not going to need offspring. You'll just live your existence. That's the perfect, that's utopia, where you don't have to build an army to protect yourself. And that includes an army of immunological army of bacteria, of antibodies. Because that's family, is antibodies. So that's why me going into other families or groups, penetrating them and trying to assimilate to something that doesn't agree with you, because they're attacking you. They think you're attacking them unless you're assimilating them. They're like, okay, but then could you survive assimilating to something that's destructive? Because families are destructive. That's the nature of family. There's so much division in that family, and then there's the microbes are attacking each other through the blood types and through the Rh factors. And so we may not be developing so many offspring who must defend itself from predators. That's why I posted that whole reel of, at the end, it'll be people who are on their own, being happy on their own. They're not always in defense because of an offspring or a significant other who is attacking them at the micro level, causing them behaviors that they don't even recognize. That's why they want to guide reproduction carefully. As you know, if there was only men on the planet, they would go to war and annihilate themselves to death. Women carry the human race on, but at what expense? If it wasn't for women and morality, men would go off the deep end with excess and pleasure. However, some women also fall into excess and pleasure to the point of no return. Then it is restarting the petri dish again. Okay? And so now I'm back to where the beginning. So yeah, interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to stop now because I'm pretty much done with that. So yeah, good luck, guys. I mean, I don't know if there's anything more to say, but I think I covered it. We're in the blood wars. That's why I changed my cover page. It says Blood Wars, Eve's Rebellion, Taking Back Paradise, because we are in a blood war. And that's the scale down, the accelerated scale down. You can say the depopulation agenda, well, it was always that way, but it wasn't as fast or as frequent. Now, the intention is accelerating. But it was always, people's belief systems are accelerating. They already expect to die someday. They already want to hunt for the enemy. They're looking for a savior. And when you put both Savior and Satan together, they both will work against you. Resistance is futile. You have to learn how to assimilate, release demons, stay home and stay safe. And take note that, yes, those who are O negative and relatively robust, they will be out there gallivanting. Don't assume because they're doing it, you should be doing it too. Because you could have a bloodline that is way less and more aggressive to you than they do. Don't compare yourself to somebody else. I tried to do that with my husband. I can't keep up with my husband because he's O negative. He really is. And so I know what I'm working with, what I'm working for, who I'm working for, and what I'm working for. And I know my limitations. And so I couldn't keep up in his world. There's no fucking way I could keep up in his world. But I can find a way to help him in his world as well as he helps me in my world. And that's knowing so many things out there and yourself. And good luck with, that's a lot. That's a lot to take inventory of, but it's possible. And then you can understand now the world you live in and find ways to take protective measures. That's why the system recommended masks too in the beginning. Oh, I learned a lot the last 7 years, especially the last 3 years. So, all right, that's it. I've talked enough. I'm wired as hell. I didn't even drink all this. All right, talk to you later. Bye.